made you feel on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being
Nazi.
My name is Dr. Nick Peterson, and I specialize in those suffering from TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. Hello, I'm Dr. Peterson. How are you? Well, Donald Trump is a felon. Nope. I asked how you were doing. The majority of Americans can mentally handle election results.
Doesn't that sound like as soon as you bring up Donald Trump, he's a felon, fascist. Just start blurting out stuff.
On both sides of the aisle. However, there's this small, albeit growing, group of, I don't want to say Americans, but people that are just disconnected from reality.
Fascist.
And honestly, it makes diagnosing these people a whole lot easier. I just check their social media. Gone are the days when you just search your symptoms on WebMD.
Isn't this so accurate, man?
At home by yourself. Now they record their symptoms and post them for the world to see. The haircut is also a dead giveaway. So, what brings you in today? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's the orange democracy-destroying, Putin-loving dictator. All right, so mental illness. They are completely blind to the fact that their absurd actions and ideologies were a big factor in their party's loss. Let me ask you this. Do you even know what democracy is? Follow-up question. Do you know how Kamala Harris became the nominee? I know you're a deplorable Nazi fascist bigot. Okay. Turns out that calling half the country Nazis for 4 years was not a winning strategy. And yet somehow, not even Cardi B could save him. Do you realize what I'm going through? Yep, delusions. I am losing my right to vote. What? Where are you getting your information? Whoopi Goldberg? Well, what's the remedy, you might be wondering?
Yep.
Well, if you ask me, it's a history lesson in Jesus, but the pharmacy doesn't offer.
It's the sea hags from The View. Yep, they're getting it from them.
Vote? What? Where are you getting your information? Whoopi Goldberg? Well, what's the remedy, you might be wondering? Well, if you ask me, it's a history lesson in Jesus, but the pharmacy doesn't offer those. I prescribe them a brain, and I send them to trybrain.com for more information. Well, I'll show you. I'm moving to Canada. That'd be great. And I'll be shaving my head. Oh, no. And one last thing, I'm going on a sex strike. Your loss. Oh, no.
Oh, no. This is how I sound every time I have to argue with somebody who's a Democrat and they start saying, oh, Trump's this.
You're
I'm
lost. Oh, no.
All right, man. Hopefully I remember, but I'm going to put this in the replay. I'm gonna credit this video. He's on X. His name is Nick Peterson, if I happen to not put it inside of the description. Nick Peterson on X. Oh, man. I'm glad I remember. See, thank you, Zahar. See, I'm glad you said something, and I was like, oh, I forgot about this video. I forgot to add it to the lineup. This reminds me of talking to so many people that I've had arguments with or disagreements with. Some have been just disagreements with when it comes to Democrats, but they literally will just continue to just say a bunch of random outbursts. Like I'll say, yeah, so like about the economy and this and that, and they'll say, yeah, but he's a felon. I'm like, what? I'm like, wait. Let's talk about the policy. No, he's a fascist. I'm like, and it's like sometimes it's like talking to a child. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sorry to say that. I don't mean that disrespectful. But like sometimes it's like, because I have 2 children. And when I talk to them, I mean, they're kids, right? They talk about a bunch of stuff, right? You got to let the kid talk about their stuff. But like when I'm talking to grown adults and I'm like, I'm trying to stay on topic about like policies and immigration and the war and U.S. representation, and they're just all over the place with this. They start talking about Trump back in the 70s, and then they start talking about, Trump being a felon and Stormy Daniels. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Oh, January 6th and threat to democracy. And it's so bad. It's like, yo, what does that have to do with him being the president of the United States? What does that have to do with fixing the economy? So you got all these things to say about one person, but you got nothing to say about Joe Biden. So when you bring up Stormy Daniels and then I bring up Tara Reid, who y'all just happen to forget about, then you say, well, Tara Reid, that was handled, Oh, so but he was accused of that like a long time ago. Oh, whatever. Oh, Donald Trump's a crook. Okay, but when he was president under Barack Obama, he was taking millions of dollars from like China and Ukraine and all of that stuff while he was vice president. That's being crooked. Oh, but he's far less worse than Donald Trump. It's like every time I have something to combat them with, they'll try to bury it as if it's not worse than Trump's. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, forget it. And that's why I'm glad that the election is over, because now there's a clear winner where it says, listen, the American people, 76 million people voted for Donald Trump. No one's listening to your Trump derangement messages anymore.
Sensational.
And we actually find it funny. And whenever I have a conversation with a Democrat, most of the time, I would say 80% of the time, I know where the conversation's going because I've talked to so many of them. All I got to say is one word. And a few of these words, I know what they're going to talk about, right? I've said this before, so bear with me. I'll say it again. If I say something about, the migrants and the border, they'll mention the border bill, right? If I mention the economy, then they'll talk about Obama's, inherited economy. It's like it's all the same stuff. But whenever we start talking about real facts and real policies, they can never stay on it. And I think their way of trying to make you feel bad, whether you're a Trump supporter or you're just voting for Trump, is that they just want to call him a bunch of names and call you a bunch of names. Well, let me tell y'all something, Democrats. Earth to you guys who lost. No one is listening to your name calling anymore. And maybe you should sit down and listen, since you guys lost the election, and figure out why you lost, and then regroup and stop calling everybody names. Stop calling Donald Trump names, because people are so numb to it and they don't care when you're not fixing America's problems and you're trying to tell them, oh, there's not a migrant issue. Oh, the economy's coming down. Oh, inflation's down, even though it's still up. It's still above the threshold. Oh, it's coming down. Meanwhile, that mother that's in friggin' Tennessee is still not noticing that the prices have went down and the gas and the groceries are still high, but you're lying to her. And then you guys are funding wars left and right, talking about we want a peace treaty, we want ceasefire, but here you go, Israel, here you go, Iran, here y'all go, Ukraine. Oh, let me go ahead and sign off on this missile that y'all can go ahead and send over to Russia. That's what y'all doing behind closed doors. But when we try to talk about facts, this video that I just played, it almost brings me deja vu.
Sensational.
Because I've had conversations where name calling just starts flying out of nowhere. And I'm like, where the hell are we going with this conversation? And I have to constantly redirect. And through the entire conversation, I've had like 10-minute conversations, 20-minute conversations, where I'm literally trying to like redirect them back. Then I'll get them back for a second and they'll just drift off. Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing. It's a real thing. And it's programmed by the media. Prime example, people like Joe Scarborough and Mika are one of the culprits of it. And they've caused Trump derangement syndrome in so many Americans. Meanwhile, they just went to Mar-a-Lago last week to meet with Trump because their ratings are in the dump, and now they want to bring him on the show. So they've lied to you guys for so long, but they've lied to many and millions of Americans, but they won't come on TV to apologize and say, you know what, America, I'm sorry that we misled you, and I'm sorry that we've been calling Donald Trump a fascist, a racist, and a threat to democracy, and all these things for so many years. They won't come on national TV and said, you know what, we got it wrong. We met with Trump, and we want to restart communication, but we want to do it the right way. and we want to first apologize. These old spineless people won't do that. They have infected, not affected, they have infected millions of Americans with that bad rhetoric. And now those folks are walking around saying the same things they heard from Morning Joe, and they're saying it to anybody that wants to have a conversation with them about politics.